Story 1. Becoming pregnant as a result of sexual assault and then being abused by my attacker because of it. Story 2. Raised to be a good human being and to put others before yourself, only to have it taken advantage of by men who do not understand empathy. Learning self-worth as an adult is also very difficult. Story 3. Menstrual cramps, such as severe pain that keeps me in bed and causes me to miss work, hormonal migraines, and premenstrual syndrome mood swings or dysphoria. The best thing to ever happen to me was menopause. It effectively ended all of these symptoms. Story 4. Suffering from extreme postpartum depression to the point I wanted to kill us both and being told I should be happy to have a baby because some people cannot have them. Story 5. Not being able to make my own medical decisions. I wanted to have my uterus removed, but because I am in my 30s, they say I am too young and do not have enough children, so they cannot perform the procedure I want. Such nonsense. Story 6. The constant gaslighting. If I complain, I am difficult, even when my complaints are rational, well-presented, and legitimate. I am expected to just shut up and put up. When someone crosses a line and I finally speak up for myself, I am told I should have spoken up sooner. There is no right way to advocate for myself as a result. What is worse, I watch my male peers have a completely different experience. It is so pervasive. No one thinks they are that person pressuring me to be silent, but many do it silently or subconsciously. Story 7. Being raped by my mother's friend. Then, when I told my mother years later, she said, "That doesn't surprise me." I was floored, miscarrying, and my boyfriend telling people, "I didn't want that baby anyway." Endometriosis combined with polycystic ovary syndrome. Story 8. The reaction of my parents when I told them I was sexually assaulted was, "Oh, then it wasn't that bad. And it's your fault," without knowing any details. I was still struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder at that time. Story 9. My father is the most emotionally manipulative person I know. He is a psychopath. He used me as a child against my mother and manipulated and abused our whole family. Story 10. Well, I guess if I had to choose, attempted rape. Rape with a past sexual partner was terrifying, but coerced rape I experienced with a total stranger and attempted rape by another stranger, which was very disturbing, was pretty devastating. Story 11. My mother and a police officer caught someone I thought of as a friend actively trying to assault me. I was blamed by both of them. Story 12. Having my children taken from me by their drug-addicted father, who threatened to kill me and stole $100,000 from me, was devastating. Hearing that he told them, "Mommy doesn't love you," and learning that he said I abandoned them, I thought I would die from heartbreak and almost lost my mind. Story 13. Chronic pain from poorly researched healthcare for women. Interstitial cystitis is a diagnosis given to women experiencing varying degrees of bladder and pelvic pain that mimics a urinary tract infection. It has almost no treatment options or pain relief. Millions of women suffer in agony daily due to this. Story 14. Losing a child at birth and eventually finding your partner, but him not helping you or letting you mourn a loss since it was not his. Story 15. Not the absolute worst, but just menstruating in general. I hate it, always have. I am almost 40, am child-free, and had my tubes removed, but I still take birth control to help somewhat reduce my monthly discomfort. In the last few years, I have suddenly developed a new side effect: acne. It is worse than I had as a teen, and it appears every single month. Story 16. Having to deal with difficult people on both ends of gender. It's your own mother. I had to deal with my poor taste in dating, but I didn't deserve to be used for sex. I was lied to for years. Oh well. Story 17. Postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. Feeling like you are doing a terrible job with your baby and that you are harming them for life, even though there is no evidence of this. Being overly worried that your baby will be a victim of sudden infant death syndrome, so any noise they make at night keeps you awake. Panicking every time your baby cries because it feels like you are doing everything wrong. Feeling like a failure because your baby will not latch, and you can only feed them milk by pumping. Feeling like your baby would be better off without you. Story 18. I have had it easy compared to others on this thread. but being approached by strangers in public and told to smile. Story 19. Sexual assault. Being sexually groomed and preyed on by adults when I was a teenager, and manipulated severely. Being told constantly that I am worthless as a woman because of my body, height, weight, disability, and so on. Being made to always put myself last and sacrifice my needs and boundaries for others. Being taught to accept and always forgive treatment that is below bare minimum or outright abuse, because my role as a woman is supposedly to heal broken men. Story 20. When I was 11, I was molested by a boy. At 14, I was sexually abused by my boyfriend. When I was 18, a much older male coworker told me he would like to see me in lingerie. Story 21. Losing my virginity to rape and not being believed by a now former best friend. Abusive relationship. He still harasses me occasionally even though I left him over 2 years ago. Despite having a hereditary disability that has affected my life, I do not qualify for tubal ligation because I am only 30. Being told to smile more. Women siding with their cheating husbands and boyfriends after those men have been exposed as cheaters. Life has not been easy. Story 22. I have a ruptured ovarian cyst. I went to the hospital with the worst pain I have ever felt in my entire life, enough to make me black out. The doctor told me that it would go away and that it was food poisoning. A female nurse taking my vitals said she knew it was a ruptured cyst and that she had dealt with the same thing before. The doctor sent me home with a medical bill of several $1,000s and the most expensive ibuprofen I have ever taken for food poisoning. Story 23. Hopefully it's not something as terrible as the experiences other women have shared already. I am a tomboy and not really into feminine things. Mainly clothes and makeup. I have had guys try to change that about me and become obsessed with doing so, because apparently they loved my feminine side more, as if wearing skirts and tight pants would make me more of a woman. Story 24. Precancerous cells in the cervix and many painful biopsies and procedures to ensure it did not progress. My cervix is causing me severe pain for some reason, and I do not appreciate it at all. Story 25. Hard to choose. I think my second stalker was worse than my first, but they both were awful. My abusive ex gaslighted me so much that I began to have memory problems. Therapy helped a lot, but I still have lingering issues like panic attacks. That is only the tip of the iceberg. I truly believe that if I had stayed, my death would have been either by my hand or his. Story 26. Experiencing sexual assault by a partner. Being sexually assaulted on public transportation and dealing with feelings of shame afterward because I froze and did not fight as I thought I would. Suffering a birth injury where my vagina and anus essentially became one and being told I could become doubly incontinent before I was taken into surgery. Story 27. Cramps. I get hit on constantly while just minding my own business walking our dog. Now I have to avoid that house because he does not take no for an answer. I am not interested in dating. Story 28. Not being listened to by other nurses about the pain I was experiencing from what I was certain was a urinary tract infection. They basically said I was imagining it. I remember crying in the car because this was the 6th urinary tract infection I had had in only a matter of months. I went back to urgent care when I started urinating blood. Make sure to ask for a urine culture if you think you have a urinary tract infection. Those dipstick tests are not reliable. Story 29. 9 years of childhood sexual abuse by a trusted family member, childhood torture, sexual exploitation at 8, and becoming disabled due to all the trauma. Slowly working on getting better mentally but trauma-induced borderline personality disorder, a seizure disorder, a fainting disorder, and chronic pain. Trauma does not just affect the mind, it damages the actual nervous system. Story 30. After reading many comments, I, as a male, feel sorry for the female version of the human species. We males have let you down on many occasions and levels. I hope you will forgive us one day. We are trying to improve. Story 31. This is far from the worst thing about being a woman, but I have never been sexually assaulted, had period cramps, or been pregnant or given birth. For me, the worst thing is the constant disbelief or questioning I get from men about my area of expertise, my own personal experiences, or my physical, mental, or emotional state. It seems if a man says something, He is believed without question. But if I or another woman says something, it is called into question. I used to be a baker, and I have had men with little to no baking experience question adding leavening to a recipe. Not the science behind it, but asking, "Do you really think we need to add that?" And then trying to argue with me. We are constantly invalidated and not believed by people in authority in our lives, even from childhood. Do not feel sad. That boy pulled your hair because he likes you. From our mothers. It cannot hurt that bad. You would not be up walking around if it did. From our doctors. I am sure you wanted it or you did something to lead him on. From the police. We are supposed to trust these people, and their words make us doubt our own feelings until we start to believe we are crazy. It is exhausting. Story 32. Strange men approached me to ask if I am homeless. People also get angry at me whenever my toddler is loud. When I was with my ex, neither of these things happened. I learned that single women, especially single mothers, are more vulnerable. People are less likely to approach a woman in public for any reason if there is a boyfriend or husband standing next to her. Story 33. As a hairy cisgender woman wearing shorts, I took the bus when an elder told me I was sick and needed medication. They said it was dangerous for a boy to try to be a woman. You cannot always tell when someone is transgender, and transphobia hurts everyone, especially by controlling women to meet standards like looking like a 14-year-old to be appealing. Story 34. Wanting to be friends with men only for them to constantly talk about my body and have wandering eyes toward me. I can feel the stares. Story 35. A close friend throughout my life made unwanted advances toward me. There is a large age difference, and I have a boyfriend too. It was a horrible experience. Story 36. Having 3 ectopic pregnancies and no successful pregnancies before requiring the removal of both fallopian tubes rendered me infertile. Story 37. Being raised by a woman who constantly told me I was fat and ugly, who also tried sleeping with my boyfriend, told me I didn't try hard enough after an attempted suicide, being raped after my mother forced me to go to a party I didn't want to attend because she said I needed to finally start being cool, being told I was exaggerating after weeks of depression and hiding in my room following the rape, and being told by family that I need to love my mother regardless because she is my mother. All of this happened between ages 10 and 18. I moved out as soon as I turned 18. My mother harassed me for a while through phone calls and text messages. I blocked her. I had no relationship with her for a couple of years. I am now 30, and my mother has improved a lot, and we are friends. Story 38. Instead of holding the person who sexually assaulted me accountable, I was told that I better not start drama and that they would not get involved because the person who assaulted me was still their friend and a member of the community. Ironically, this was all coming from a man who openly prides himself on being an ally. Men love to preach about being an ally until it is one of their friends. Then all of a sudden, it is just different. Story 39. I was stalked in 2011, and the police basically laughed and told me I should be flattered. They said that men are trained to be persistent, especially when women say no. Story 40. My father molested me for several years. I wished I was born a boy since he only did it to me and not my brothers. My mother did not believe me for years. One of my brothers has a tattoo dedicated to our father. A former friend once told me she thinks children are molested as karma for something they did wrong in a past life. All of them know what happened to me. I just laugh at this point. It is absurd what happened to me and how people think it is appropriate to react to that. Story 41. Leaving the hospital after giving birth without my baby. She had to stay in the neonatal intensive care unit for a few weeks. Story 42. Continually being manipulated and emotionally abused, coerced into sex, and having my emotions disregarded by most of the men I get close to. Story 43. Men and boys who think it is funny to catcall or harass me when I am out walking. Sometimes I do not even notice until they have driven away because I always listen to music. Sometimes it startles me, which I am sure they love. I would give them a piece of my mind, but I am short, small, and afraid of what would happen. Story 44. Randomly getting hit on by strangers. Sexual harassment. Having doctors and nurses tell me my symptoms are not that bad. as well as once being denied medical care for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. I was with another woman for 2 years when this happened. I have a wonderful husband now. Story 45. Being physically assaulted and left with injuries. When I mentioned it to another woman in Reddit comments, a sociopathic individual harassed us both with insults late into the early morning. The piano subreddit moderators then elevated that person to become a moderator of their subreddit and told me that I should consider returning after I get over my hurt feelings. If anyone knows how to get such individuals permanently banned from Reddit, I am all ears. Story 46. I am a guy, but once I was coming out of the theater at night years ago. I was wearing a hoodie and some jeans, just relaxing. I had a fit figure from running, and some guys thought I was a woman. The way they were loudly whispering about doing things to me made me realize how terrifying it is to be a woman. Story 47. Men in the workplace are either outright flirts or sly flirts. If you reject their advances, you may have to worry about losing your job. Story 48. Ectopic pregnancy. I was bleeding at 5 weeks and told the doctor. She said it was no big deal. A few days later, I was rushed to the emergency room at 3 a.m. because my fallopian tube had ruptured, causing internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. The surgeon said if I had waited until morning, I would have died. Also, most women I know, including myself, have been sexually harassed. It is hard to remember that not all men are responsible when, to protect yourself, you have to approach every date with your safety constantly in mind, since he could be one of those men. Story 49. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome as a teenager. At the time, I did not receive any education about insulin resistance. Now, I have type 2 diabetes. I have also experienced tachycardia, which is a rapid heartbeat, for years. All of my doctors are concerned about it, but every time I see the cardiologist, he attributes it to anxiety. I have no choice but to believe him, but I am terrified I will be diagnosed with heart disease or even heart failure because I do not feel I am being taken seriously. Story 50. Emotional, financial, and sexual abuse by a partner who tried to kill me twice. He told me he wasn't violent because he never punched me, and calling him abusive upset him. I endured 9 years of this because I had nowhere to go, even though the police and local council were involved and suggested I should have left. After I did leave, I received death threats, which the police took seriously enough to follow up on, thankfully. We are still surprised I survived. But he was such a loser he couldn't follow through on those threats. I developed deep vein thromboses because I started taking birth control pills too young, based on my stepmother's assumption that I was sexually active, which I was not. As a result, at age 15, I was told I would die if I became pregnant, despite not being sexually active, and I underwent invasive checks and tests because of the thromboses. My parents consented to these procedures, so my lack of consent did not matter. I was never believed when I was ill, to the point that I now struggle to recognize illness in myself, effectively gaslighting myself. Doctors automatically discounted my pain and listened more to my parents, who claimed I was being dramatic. To choose one, I focus on the first, the shame, stigma, and lasting trauma caused by intimate partner violence. I will never be the same. Even my parents assume I did something wrong or am exaggerating. Story 51. 7 urinary tract infections in 9 months since I got into a relationship again. I am so tired of it, but it has made me very appreciative that I live in the West and in a time where we have access to antibiotics. I will be talking with my general practitioner soon to see if I can get preventative medication. Story 52. Being fat and thin, coupled with being unattractive, can affect how people are treated. This may also be true for men, but being treated very differently when you are overweight is common. In my experience, being unattractive and thin has been better than being unattractive and overweight. In general day-to-day life, I do not have a specific example, but you just notice a difference. It is sad. Everything from simple kindness and politeness to promotions at work is affected. Story 53. It was especially bad when I was 19 to 21. I used to be very conventionally attractive, and it led to a lot of issues. Men would always think I was looking at them when I was zoning out or just looking at something in the distance. It was basically impossible for me to go out alone without getting grabbed or touched in some way. This happened even in the middle of the day. If I was sitting at a bus stop, they would touch my thigh. If I was walking along the sidewalk, they would grab my arm and try to drag me somewhere. Most of the time, nobody would notice, but a few times other women intervened. I would generally be left alone if I was with friends, and gaining a lot of weight helped, but it still happens occasionally. I had to stop taking public transportation and just factor rideshare services into my budget years ago. Each time I try public transportation again to save money, I regret it. Story 54. Being forced to go to the gynecologist when I was 16 by my abusive parent was traumatic. The doctor was a man who clearly did not understand the symptoms and signs of endometriosis and unprofessionally said I was torn up in there. Shortly after this incident, my abusive parent still did not believe I was a virgin and, for months, made me remove my tampon or pad in front of her to prove I was on my period. Story 55. Being hurt by every man in my life. Every single one. Even those I thought I could trust, over the course of my entire life, now 25 years. When I was done healing from one incident, someone would put me through another traumatic experience. I am in constant survival mode, still learning to live with all of this trauma. Story 56. Being mistaken for a man because I ride a motorcycle and am quite built, I often get the short end of the stick. No offense, but most males treat each other horribly during the first impression, especially if they are in the security line, whether guards, rent-a-cops, or police officers. Their tone of voice softens as soon as I speak. This mindset and culture need to change, to be honest. Story 57. Betrayal and jealousy can be dangerous. I have had people dislike me for the silliest reasons. At some point in my life, I felt I had to watch my back for my own safety because of stalking and revenge. I have a problem with a jealous relative who is so envious that she would want to hurt me if she could. I would love to see her try. With one hit, I could probably send her flying across the street. Story 58. Growing up feeling unattractive with pretty friends who treated me poorly. Getting plastic surgery to try to improve my appearance only to end up with a debilitating health issue as a side effect of the surgery. Now, after having several procedures, growing into my face and developing a fuller figure, I get attention all the time but feel uncomfortable because I am shy and have difficulty saying no or rejecting people. Story 59. Having periods for 2-3 months straight, off and on for years. I was on progestin-only pills when it first started happening. Then I got the implant, which did not help. Then combined oral contraceptives and attempted to do the 4 periods a year approach. That didn't work. Then I tried Depo-Provera and still had the issue, so I went back on the pill. Finally, life circumstances changed, and I decided to stop taking birth control altogether after the most recent 3-month-long period. My periods are so heavy that I would soak through an ultra tampon and the largest maxi pad possible in 1 to 2 hours, and it lasted like that for 1 to 3 weeks straight. The pain is intense. I have fallen down and nearly passed out, and I have laid crying in pain more times than I can count. I should have had transfusions several times but was dismissed by too many doctors. Now that I am completely off birth control, my periods are improving. I still wear a diaper on heavy days but only for 2 days maximum, if that. The pain has reduced significantly to the point where I barely notice it. I was close to getting an endometrial ablation, and my obstetrician-gynecologist still wants to perform a hysteroscopy beforehand. However, now that I have been freshly diagnosed with cervical cell abnormalities, my focus is on treating this to prevent it from developing into invasive cancer, which would be more difficult to manage. Story 60. Well, I have never been a woman, but when I was 16, I had long hair, which caused a lot of older men to appear on my Instagram. Story 61. Being born in a male body and repressing my transgender identity for over 30 years to appease society because I thought it was weird, made me a freak and would go away eventually, but it never did. I was transphobic to myself because, in my childhood, my father was very homophobic and afraid of anything different. So, I held it in and got kind of stuck like that for a while, meanwhile envying everyone else who was born a cisgender woman or had already transitioned. I thought that once I transitioned, something worse would probably happen to me, but I am sick of living this way. Over 30 years, and I just can't do it anymore. Nothing I have gone through compares to some of the experiences I am seeing here, which, God forbid, I ever have to experience. Story 62. Nothing as extreme as most comments here, but the expectation that I always have to be nice, accommodating, and available to talk to strangers just because of the way I look. Men can get away with having the nastiest attitudes, being rude, and feeling entitled to approach me while I am doing my business. However, as soon as I return even a fraction of that energy or simply say, I do not want to talk, please leave me alone, I am seen as unnecessarily rude, escalating the situation, and asked why I will not just be nice and give him a chance. It is sickening how society feels entitled to women's attention for no reason other than that we are a product to be consumed. Story 63. Can I answer this question for a friend if I am a man? I realize there is a lot of horrible stuff women go through, like the unspeakable. I just want to share this one little answer. My friend trained her whole life to be a swimmer. She gave up good grades to practice more. She had friends walk out on her. Her parents were supportive until one day her dad cheated on her mom and he was out of the picture. She changed her hurt feelings into anger and channeled that anger into practicing swimming even more. She never admitted it, but she was broken. She put every ounce of her life and well-being on the line to make something of herself. After a few years of competitions, she started to come first in every single one she entered. She began a winning streak she did not want broken. The last competition she faced was over 3 years ago. She lost to a transgender person whom she believed was male. She fell into depression and questioned her whole life, asking herself why she let everything go for something she considered so unfair. She started to hate swimming and gave up on it. She ended up getting a 9-to-5 job and, well, let's just say she is no longer with us. That is why I am not a fan of transgender people. I would never disrespect the person, but I am simply not a fan. She worked her whole life and broke herself trying to be perfect, only to lose her streak of winning in a women's competition to a man. Story 64. I had terrible abdominal pain off and on for about a decade, but as a teenage girl, the doctors did not take me seriously. They said it was gas or acid reflux. I finally saw a female doctor, and she knew right away it was my gallbladder. They scheduled surgery for the next day. The surgeon told me I had one gallstone the size of a golf ball. It was moving along the bottom of the gallbladder and had nearly eroded through. He said I would have had a maximum of 1 month before it burst and could have killed me. Story 65. I was homeless with my infant. Every male friend I thought I had made throughout my life tried to take advantage of me while I stayed in their home, except for one. Even my family members did. Yes, even my family members. But I no longer believe men and women can be platonic friends. I think women can, but not men. I want to believe, but I no longer do. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.